This weekend's shooting is likely just one in a long list of acts of extremist violence. And to put this weekend's tragedy into context, I do want to bring in Cynthia Miller-Idriss, the founding director of American University's Polarization and Extremism Research Lab. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I just want to get your reaction to the horrific shooting in Colorado, and I wonder how it impacts your current assessment of violent extremism in America.
Well, unfortunately, I think this is really predictable in incredibly frustrating ways, right? We have been seeing not just the kind of moral panic that we just heard about, this language and legislation around that are anti-LGBTQ plus, but also, falsely using language like groomers. But we've specifically been seeing targeted attacks on drag performances and library bans, attempts to ban books that are related to the LGBTQ community. So there's been this sweeping moral panic that is broader and also connected to, in some cases, escalations like throwing rocks or smoke bombs. So I feel like this type of an attack was a kind of inevitable development coming out of the last year or so of rising violence. Last year was the deadliest year on record for the LGBTQ plus community. And, it's just a tragedy that we haven't been, even at the federal level, really taking this seriously in the ways that we need to.
Well, and so I put the same question to you that I was just speaking with the state representative about. What can be done to address this? Because it's well documented. Our extremism reporter Ben Collins told us yesterday that he's seeing an increase in anti-LGBTQ rhetoric and transphobic rhetoric. What can be done to prevent this, particularly when there are so many more platforms where it can spread and fester?
Yeah, it's so frustrating to see the rapid growth, the rapid spread, and to not see the attention. I mean, the category of extremist violence against gender or sexuality is considered other. That's the category within the U.S. Framework for this. We have categories for anarchism, for animal rights extremism, for separatist movements, for white supremacist extremism. But anything related to gender and sexuality just falls into an umbrella category of other. It's a complete dismissal of the seriousness of it. And that has real implications for who gets hired, what kinds of expertise, what staff lines are there in the Department of Justice or in the Department of Homeland Security. So I think, those classification systems really matter for whether Congress holds hearings, what types of interventions get funded as part of extremist prevention work. And so I think, we really have to see serious attention to it, at least its own category within the federal hierarchy of what constitutes domestic extremism and targeted violence.
We're having this conversation. Obviously, various social media platforms have been in the media recently and in the headlines, including and especially Twitter. Of course, the change in leadership there, Elon Musk, and there are some real concerns about guardrails potentially being stripped away at Twitter. I wonder what you think the impact of that might be on allowing hate speech to go unchecked. And who bears responsibility, Cynthia? Is it the platforms themselves or is it the federal government?
It's all of our responsibility. It's also a cultural responsibility. I think on the one hand, the social media developments on Twitter specifically are very dangerous. I myself stepped away from Twitter publicly yesterday because of that specific decision on allowing anti-trans activists. I think it's dangerous in the wake of an attack like this for me to sit here analyzing it and then tweet about it on a platform that isn't acknowledging that. So, that's my own personal decision as a scholar and as a public figure. But I think when we see these kinds of things ignored in social media, but also in the government, it's very dangerous. What we have seen, though, and I want to, say something positive, the local police, for example, I think were very empathetic, used the pronouns correctly. We're also seeing, a wave of support and allies. We had, a hero who you just highlighted, who was just a father who happened to be there, not a member of the community, but an ally who really was the savior here in the Harrow. And I think that when we see that also get normalized, it's really important. That's what I mean by a cultural change, where people also reject this and say, we won't stand for it.
Yeah, a really, really important point. Cynthia Miller-Idriss, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your really critical insights today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.